We are Vistar Media, and we've spent the last decade perfecting how to connect brands and consumers in the physical world. From real-time offers and directions to social integrations and live data feeds, Vistar now brings a full suite of first-to-market capabilities that allow brands to activate dynamic creative across all venue formats globally. The future of out-of-home advertising is here.
We are out front, in name and in nature. One of North America's most innovative media companies, fusing creativity, location, and now smart audience data to change the game for advertisers. We are leading the transformation of out-of-home media by deploying digital at scale and embracing new technologies, applying our unique geospatial, data-rich targeting tools to deliver audiences more accurately than ever before, as well as offering exciting new buying channels, such as programmatic, to increase flexibility, relevance, and reduce time to market.
Hi, everyone. Happy summer. I'm Alicia Greenberg with the Advertising Club of New York. On behalf of the club, our president, Gina Grillo, and our very active committee chairs, Ryan Lau of Omnet, Dave Yacullo with Van Wagner, Laura Brandeis, who's our moderator today with Rapport Worldwide, and Brian Rappaport of Quan Media. Thanks for being here for our Out of Home Now webinar. This session features some of the industry's most influential media buyers and is part of our very popular Out of Home Now content offerings that include a quarterly newsletter, online and social content, and of course, our very popular annual conference that's going to take place this year on Thursday, December 8th in New York City. More to come on that shortly. Of course, all of this is only possible through the generous support of our member sponsor companies at the gold level, Adomni, Clear Channel Outdoor, Intersection, Lamar, Outfront, Vector and Vistar, and at the silver level, Capital, GSTV, and Van Wagner. If you want to be involved in the event or become members of the club, which we encourage you to do, and our mission to educate, celebrate, and empower our community, visit us at theadvertisingclub.org, or even better, write to me, Alicia, at theadvertisingclub.org. I would love to have a conversation with you. Also, feel free to socialize the information from today's session and tag us at @ClubNY. Now, please join me in welcoming our moderator, Group Director at Rapport Worldwide, and Committee Chair, Laura Brandeis. Over to you, Laura.
So hello, thank you all for tuning in to the Out of Home Now Mid-Year Review webinar. I'm Laura Brandeis and will be the moderator for today's session. So it's hard to believe we're already in Q3, but here we are, it's August. And we thought it would be a good time to check in with some of the best and brightest agency leaders on the trends that they're seeing this year in the out-of-home space. So during the session, we'll be addressing concerns about the economic slowdown and the impact that it may have on out-of-home, and really get their take on the future as it relates to innovation and emerging growth drivers. So with that, I would love to introduce our four amazing panelists. We have Alejandro Claiborne, EVP Executive Director of Media Hub's New York office, Mark Fenty, SVP Director of Out-of-Home at Horizon Media, Billy Long, EVP of Out-of-Home Practice and Account Management at Publicis, and Chris Olson, President of Rapport US. So thank you guys so much for taking the time. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about the economy at this point. The forecasts continue to remain positive when it comes to expectations for growth in out-of-home ad spend this year. Many sources are noting that the US out-of-home market is on track to fully recover to 2019 spend levels. Some are saying out of home is having its moment. Others say it really never stopped, as the channel has proved time and time again that it's very resilient in an ever-changing marketplace. But I think the one burning question everyone wants to know is the impact this recession may have on the industry as we think about the back half of the year. So I'd love to hear from each of you. What are you guys hearing from clients about the recession and the impact? And are there any major concerns or implications we should be thinking about when we're building those strategic media recommendations, whether that's from a planner's lens, a brand, or even a media owner? So Chris, I'd love to throw it over to you first.
Sure. I'll preface this by saying I think it's all going to, a lot of this is dependent on what categories you typically work on in your agency. So, we may have more of like a pharma perspective from rapport or entertainment. So this is kind of general, but I will say we forecast all the time. I mean, we do 5 forecasts a year. We're doing flashes like every month or so. So as we're kind of looking at this currently, we're up about, I'd say 15 to 20% in spend every year. It's been very, very strong start. I know this kind of economic downturn has been looming for a little bit now, but I will say, of the 100 plus clients that we have currently spending, only 2 currently have used that downturn as rationale to pull out or, slow things down. And, most of those have been discretionary income-based clients. So, for example, Picasso, right? They're one that is very based on like, you need large discretionary dollars to kind of own a home, a second home. So I can see why they're pulling back a little bit, but we haven't seen a dip in entertainment, which is usually a key economic determiner of a good sign of a strong economy. There's still a full theatrical slate. I mean, listen, the market is down 4,000 points or so from, when it's the high points of recent years. So there's going to be some type of small pullback. I think, we've certainly seen traditional non-out-of-home budgets get cut in the back half. I don't know if you saw this a few weeks ago, but Matt Baxter, who runs Huge, they laid off 3% of their staff. And it was very upfront about why that was. It's just the revenue was not there in the back half. Their clients had pulled out. So, so across the industry, I do feel like the larger channel budgets are being cut, which typically is a very bad thing for us. It's usually when that happens, we're seeing losses, but out of home so far has stayed pretty steady. I think what we're forecasting against in fourth quarter is, that's typically a time out of home where you see a lot of incrementality. There's a lot of last minute budgets being hit. There's mid-tier spending brands that come out of the woodworks. So we're going to be a little bit careful. I don't think we expect as many to hit this year. And, what really concerns me the most is looking at next year. Brands that are in a calendar year and they're starting to set their budgets and their marketing budgets in the next few months, typically October. So I wonder and I worry that, that could be heavily affected by the outlook of the market at the time. So, I think this year it all ends up okay, but next year, will we have a soft first quarter, things like that.
Thank you. Billy, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I still see the steady growth for this year over year, but it's kind of unfair for me because we took on some larger clients. So yeah, we're going to grow no matter what on that front. But as you do like for like business, I think one of my real concerns is going through the pandemic. We had some folks really step up. The insurance was really strong. We had some liquor brands that were really, really strong. And going into this year, as the economy was booming, they all pulled out. And so that was a big concern for me, especially when we have anchors, that are really leading the way. But, if you've been in out of home as long as most of us have, you'll know that when there are dips in certain categories, there's certainly somebody to fill in that void. And it's hard to forecast for that. And I don't mean to in Chris's forecast, but it's hard to forecast to see who's going to be that next person or next company to step up. But obviously, as you see these supply chain woes and and interest rates go up a little bit, it definitely does leave a concern. I don't think that for the second half of this year that we've been affected as an industry that much. But I certainly would have a concern going into a soft first quarter for next year because we are seeing some investment into first quarter next year. But I guess as we get closer to August, September is really when we start seeing the activity and where the where the concern may lay will be easily, not easily, but more readily available at that point. I just see, slowdowns happening, but it's not really affecting us as much because I'm certainly going to be mirrored by what Chris said in, the 15 percentile as year over year growth in spend. But I guess we'll see, we, as everybody else does, do multiple forecasts throughout the year and adjustments and flashes as well. And we have seen a continued growth, but again, I've seen a real big slowdown in the big spenders that were there a year ago.
Thank you. Alejandro.
Well, Chris, thank you for using the one example of a client that's reducing their spend as a Media Hub client. First off, I appreciate that. However, that is not a trend across all of our clients, and Chris knows that. Laura does as well. If we're just looking at what we have ordered so far up to around, I would say, and I'm just looking at July numbers, we're actually around 75% of what we ordered in all of 2021, right? So in a macro sense, out of home for Media Hub clients is doing well. We have ordered and are in out of home this year. We have some clients that are in out of home this year that weren't in out of home last year. For example, Slack is a client of ours that's run out of the Boston office that has had some healthy spend in 2022, and they weren't spending in 2021. But overall, we're trending well. Yes, there are some ebbs and flows depending on the categories. Yes, Picasso obviously makes sense. We do have clients, for example, like JetBlue, and we know what's going on overall in terms of the airlines industry and sort of the pressure that's happening in terms of their overall the service and the delays. Does make some clients in that category weary, in terms of spending when, they really have some infrastructure and some operational things across the board in the industry that they need to fix. But out of home for us is healthy. And overall across the board, if you look at it just from a macro spend perspective across the board, not just from an out of home perspective, we're doing fine. We're healthy. Now, things could fall off the table as we go into Q3 and Q4. But out of home is looking pretty good for 2022 for at least for our clients at Media Hub.
Thank you. And Mark.
Let me see. How can I be original and say something different about our industry? But here's the thing. I pretty much agree with everyone here. I feel like so far we've seen a lot of health in our businesses. We are tracking, we keep looking at, we don't look at 2020 because, that was the year of COVID, but we try to see how are we doing it compared to 2019, like pre-COVID, when like the world was great and everything was open. And right now we're tracking right exactly where we were back then. So it seems like really healthy. I think it's really definitely has to do with the clients, our client roster, obviously. I think for the most part, business is cyclical. And, when there's economy is like prosperity, they're like, great, let's spend. And then when it's down, certain categories shrink. Entertainment is a big category for us, and they've got nothing but content, So of course they're going to promote that, and they want everyone to watch it at home. So of course, it's really great. And then you have, the concern is more about how to get smaller advertisers in the game. I think that there's a perception that, well, out of home is expensive, and how do you know that it's actually pulling the, moving the needle on what we're doing, but that's when we have to think a lot more strategically. And I think that's going to your additional second question about strategic media recommendations. I feel like, in order to do that, because big spenders are going to spend, right? But if we want to get more people and we want to encourage more business, I think we have to really take a data-driven approach to what we're doing, because we want to show that there's some kind of that accountability to what we're doing, and there's an ROI, and that people now can use, we should data science to help them drive their strategies and help optimize what they're doing so they can buy smarter. You don't have to spend a lot, but you have to be strategic in how and where you buy. Of course, this is where everyone would go. Oh, programmatic, obviously, yes, programmatic is definitely a good thing. And it's a definitely good cost of entry, but nothing really beats what we do best, and that's location. So I'll leave it at that.
Perfect. No, and that's actually a great segue to the next topic, which is really channel growth, right? So like a lot of the growth that we've seen in out-of-home ad spend this year has been attributed to not only increased mobility, but Mark, to your point, the acceleration of digital out-of-home as well as programmatic digital out-of-home. So as we push for more automation, more dynamic messaging, measurable results, I'd love to hear from Alejandro and Chris, like how are you currently defining out-of-home and the role that it plays in an omni-channel marketplace? So Alejandro, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the point is it's difficult to define because it could be so many things. Right? It can be local and hyper local and used to drive traffic for retail clients. It can be used to drive creativity for entertainment and content based clients. It can be used to drive ROI, and efficiency, and hyper audience targeting if you're looking at it from a digital and programmatic perspective. So I think really it can be all things. It can be nothing. But I think what's important is education. So I think what we do is we really try to ensure that we're educating our planning teams, our planning leadership, our clients on the fact that out-of-home can be used, in so many different ways, and not really, because if you don't have that education, a lot of times clients and planning teams really fall on what the traditional thinking of out-of-home is sort of hyper-local, driving local, or sort of really big kind of spectaculars. So I think we're focusing on education and ensuring that with our partners at Rapport that our planning teams understand really the gambit of the roles that out-of-home can have, and also having that one-to-one connection with the individual vendors so that we can continue to understand where out-of-home is going and really translate that education and understanding into our plans, and of course, that into our clients.
Anything else to add to that, Chris?
Is omni-channel like the new buzzword? Like programmatic, we have 10 years, so you have to say omni-channel now. Alejandro nailed it though. Yeah, versatility I think is out-of-home's wheelhouse, and I think it puts us in that unique position for omni-channel. It really can be used as an amplifier. It provides comparable contextual outlets versus some of the other channels. There was a Nielsen survey, I think it was like last year, that really covered that for out-of-home, the most effective medium of driving online activity. So delivers like 4 times more online activity per dollar spent than other channels. So that's what I mean with amplifier. It's like a great conversion top spin to any program that you may have, and especially those that rely heavily on e-com and really driving to that online activity. So, and other kind of channels that we see a lot of is just, we see a lot of the linear TV ratings obviously being diminished. A lot of those dollars are getting pushed to streamers, but there's so much, there's limited inventory there. You can't always buy up on streamers. So this seems like the logical outlet there. So there's only so much you can kind of do there, but this is great for tune in too. So, one thing we'll talk about a good media hub example this time, but like we did recently this NBA program where we used socially sourced content. It was in all the playoff cities and regions across the nation. And it was really dynamically served, really well done over about a month span. And we saw a huge uptick. And Laura, actually, you executed this. You know the numbers a lot better than I do, but it was a big uptick in consideration and ratings year over year. So, like, I think what you saw there was just the push out of some linear TV dollars into the omni-channel space and the programmatic space, and really saw great year over year growth. So, I think in totality, when we look at omni-channel, because we're so versatile and you can be like more point of purchase and you can be performance based, like that's really why it's necessary to always include out-of-home on those omni-channel buys.
Right. And that was like a true testament to the education piece, going back to a little bit of Alejandro as well, of making sure Media Hub understood how we could really utilize the channel in an innovative way, and then, trickling that down to the clients as well. So we made a lot of strides clearly, but that doesn't mean we can also get complacent with how people are really viewing out-of-home and the role we can really make. So Mark and Billy, I'd love to hear from you guys. Where do you think though we're still missing the mark as a channel, and how can we continue to improve together as an industry?
I can start, Billy, if you don't mind, sir. I'm going to go a different angle, to talk about, I think that where we're missing the mark, I think as a channel, is diversity. And I feel like diversity is a business goal that we should be all working towards. We have to improve diversity because diversity obviously creates better opportunities of creativity and problem solving. It drives innovation. It encourages collaboration. You have smarter decision making, and therefore you have people. You're getting all of your thoughts from a wide variety of sources to help you make a more informed decision. So this helps drive business forward. And if you think about also the workforce that we're working with right now, it's a younger workforce. And this workforce believes in being, empowered and being recognized and being heard. And I think that doing that attracts that younger talent, but it also helps with retention, and so I think things are really important right now because, we have this situation where the great resignation and everyone is trying to find bodies everywhere. We want to just make sure that we get the good people and we keep the good people. And it's all about, creating a culture that celebrates the strength that comes from differing opinions. So I feel like if we start to work on it and continue to focus on growing diversity within our channel, it can only lead to greater things.
I love that. And Billy, anything on your end?
No, kudos. That was very well said, Mark. And I think, speaking for at least myself and what we're doing as a company, we're definitely making an investment in that pipeline. And I think it's very important. As an industry, I really don't think we're missing the mark, Laura, but I do definitely think that, there are definitely improvements along the way that we can make. If we just brought up measurement, I'm sure we could talk about that for a while, but getting a little more consistent on that and agreeing to disagree on where we're going to take it going further, because it does reflect everything that we do, or a lot of what we do, should I say. And I think just getting a more clear and concise direction moving forward, so we can as a group or as an industry move towards that common goal. I think that's where we should, we should put a little more focus on, or, call to action. The last thing, that came to mind was just, as we get into attribution, I think that, we're in such an infinite stage of it. I think getting that a little more further to the forefront, will benefit us as well, because going back to what some of the folks had said prior, being able to say, okay, well, what's it worth? You spent $1,000. What did I get for that? Well, we do have these tools now that can allow us to, show that reflection. And I think the better that we can optimize that, the better it's going to be moving forward. So that's kind of where I came up with.
I think that's great, Billy. And I want to kind of piggyback on some of that, because I feel like attribution is going to be key, because of course people want to know the ROI, but the challenge is that there's so many different data sources that people uses. So, but you need, and it's really hard for us to find a universal data language that we can all use, that people can, to agree upon. And I think that, if we can harness that, that would be extremely helpful to moving that forward, because I feel like it's important for us to include attribution in everything that we do. How are we going to prove that it's actually doing something? You know what I mean? And they're asking us to do that. Joel can do it, and we can too, but we just also have to agree to how we're going to do this in what way.
And it requires I think we need to do a better job of connecting the pieces internally, right? At least on the agency side, our analytics and data departments work very well with our digital teams. Right? That's their bread and butter. They work very well with digital teams. Do they work as well with our out-of-home teams? Do they even know the people in our out-of-home teams? So I think we need to do a better job of making those connections internally from an operational and structure perspective, so that our teams that are focused in this space are connected to the teams that are developing measurement frameworks, that are having data and analytics conversations with, not only internally, but with our clients, so that there is that connection there. And it's not an afterthought. It's not oh shit, we gotta measure this out of home just the way that, you know what I mean? It's actually it's actually thought about when we're actually developing a measurement framework. And I think that requires some work on our end in terms of making those connections.
Yeah, I think you said it right there, and I'm glad you led with that, because I was going to hang myself if I really went out there and said it. But I think what we could do better and should be doing better is actually having conversations, not with our strategy teams and strategy leads, because we have that every day, right? But with the client. And I think that's where we miss the boat. I mean, at least a lot of times we don't have, and I'm saying we, I'll use my team at Publicists, which is awesome, but a lot of times we do not have that direct conversation with the end client. And does it ever get lost in translation? Does it ever get that impact that we have when we speak to our strategy partners? I mean, you hope so, but you can't always guarantee it. So what can we do better? I mean, educate to the end client. And I think that, it's a challenge sometimes, because sometimes we don't really have that connectivity, and good, bad, or indifferent, that's just the way it is.
That's a really good point. So let's switch gears outside of measurement and talk a little bit about advancements in tech and innovation. So obviously new and emerging technology really continues to push the out-of-home industry forward. So I'd love to get your guys' take on how you think out-of-home fits now within the virtual space. I know omnichannel has been kind of a buzzword, and so is now metaverse and so many other aspects of our business. So as it relates to AR, VR, metaverse, you name it, Mark, I'd like to start with you. How do you think that kind of fits within out-of-home? AR has been around for a bit, and I think it's great because it's captivating, it's interactive, and it creates some kind of like snackable experience for the consumer to take away with and just to connect with their buyer. And it's easy to share on social media, so it extends the life of everything. I tend to question, how impactful VR, metaverse would be, because we're talking about planning out of home in the virtual world. We are in real life people. We are in real life location people. That's what we do. We can't plan really what's going on virtually. It's a created world. I feel like naturally, it's not like Outfront's going to call me like, hey, our Meta rep wants to sell you, our space on our world. Where is that? The scale is so low, the adoption, you're really hitting like Gen Z millennials, 13 to 30-year-olds, way younger than me. And so who are like easy, they're like the people who adopt that quickly, but it's just not of scale yet to make any kind of real impact. I think it's a shiny new toy right now, the metaverse, all that kind of stuff. And it's great in the digital space. Once they figure out how we can really apply it to move out of home forward, that would be great. We have 3D, digital now, which is great. I think that's great. That's the kind of stuff that, people respond to. But metaverse, VR, I feel like, we're in the nascent stage. So, I feel like we should focus on, stuff that we do have now and growing that out, like the data and things like that, versus like the shiny new toy that's, going on right now. Hey, metaverse, let's do that. It's just a lot of money for just very little, impact and scale.
If I could piggyback on that one, Mark, I totally hear what you're saying on that. I wonder though if like the time to plant the flag is now. Like if you wait too long on this, like metaverse is going to be a thing for a very long time until that evolves into something else. So like if you look at like just social e-com right now, it's like a $1.2 trillion business. Like metaverse is it's probably going to double that. So it's like, do we get in now? Because, and I'd love to hear from Alejandro on this too. Why can't Outfront just go in and buy like their units that exist in real life here, and also the ones that exist in metaverse and more? Like if you're going to buy one Times Square, you go to New Tradition, buy real life, and then it's a package deal where you get it in the metaverse as well. I just think that, it's going to be an easy flip for digital teams to handle this. I don't know if it's a great thing for us to lose opportunity to tie it together with our offerings as well. But again, love to hear what Alejandro thinks on that, because he'd be the one that's parsing this out.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is we as an agency have been, bullish on the metaverse. Right? We were one of the first agencies to have an office in the metaverse, and we have, experts that are building that capability, in house. But I do agree with Mark that it doesn't have scale now. Okay, so I will agree there. It doesn't have scale, and it is quite expensive to actually have ownership within the metaverse. However, I will say that out of home has always been phenomenal at creativity around the space to which we live. Right. So I just think the notion of from a creativity perspective that the metaverse is going to have, I think is immeasurable. And if you really just think about who are the experts within marketing, who are the experts in using creativity in the space, or using creativity to maximize the sort of space around us. And that has always been, that's always been this interest, and that's always been out of home. So I'm really excited about the creative opportunities within the metaverse, as we're moving forward. But I do agree that, we're 10, 15, maybe even 20 years, away. What I think has a really short-term phenomenal potential is AR. Okay. I think there can be explosions of creativity as it relates to, augmented reality. And I think that's probably going to hit a lot. That's probably going to hit bigger first, as opposed to the metaverse. And I think it's going to allow us from a creativity, from a monetization, from an advertising perspective. I think that's probably going to move first versus the metaverse. So I think, if we're talking about, yes, I think we need to plant a flag, but if I had to choose where I would plant my flag, I think it would be, in this case, I would say AR is the moon. I think metaverse is Mars. Okay, so I think let's focus. I think we should focus on the moon, because I think just using that analogy, we're still not on Mars.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I think AR really is where we should really be focusing, because I think that's going to be phenomenal, because it is going to be the combination of our physical reality, augmented by technology and the devices that we have either in our hand or on our face. I think is what's really gonna is really gonna be great.
What do I feel like out of home in the metaverse is kind of like akin to if you're like going to try to like do an ad like in Fortnite. You know what I mean? I feel like it's something like that. It's once again like a universe that's not real, but also it's like,
Yeah, but Mark, I think we can, instead of thinking of that as, I think what we can't do is approach the metaverse as if we're creating for an ad like in Times Square, or for creating, a spectacular. I think we need to open up our thinking in terms of what creativity is and what we can do in terms of an experience within, within the metaverse or AR, but I think more specifically metaverse. I think those that are going to win in the metaverse are those that use the metaverse in its infinite creative possibilities, as opposed to trying to recreate physical experience, in the metaverse. Okay. Yeah. And I'm not sure if they've changed this, but, Netflix, they had an app that, you go in and you're basically sitting in the theater watching Netflix. It's like, that's, in terms of virtual reality, it's like, why would I want to do that? I can just, either go to the theater or I have a home theater system. I think it's, how are we, the metaverse for me is not trying to create like what we do on the outside.
Like recreate. It's not about recreating.
I think it's recreate, expand sort of the idea of what that medium can offer us. And I do firmly believe that, this industry, which has always, and I said again, which has always had been phenomenal at using as taking creativity to use the space that's around us to connect with consumers. I would be excited to see how this industry takes the metaverse by storm.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm gonna just say, static in the metaverse doesn't work, right? Like it's got to be something that brings additional interaction. So, like Nike did something recently where they were promoting like one of their shoes, and it was a mix, like a hybrid of the both, right? So you're running on a treadmill, but like you've got it on and the headset on, and you're running through like a jungle and things like that. So you get like this 4D experience in a way, but it's the nice mix of like URL to IRL. We've been using that a lot lately, of like bringing it from online to in real life, or a hybrid of the two. Really, any type of experiential thing we've done lately is like an immersive experience that balances both. And so, yeah, metaverse for us, a little ways off. Just don't want to get behind on it. That was the only thing for me.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. I feel like it's definitely a creative tool at this point. It's not a marketing tool, but it's a creative tool. And it's yet again another way for us to establish a connection and engagement with our consumers. So that, it definitely serves that purpose, and the person who gets in there first, to your point, Chris, is the one that's going to like reap the benefits of that, because they're going to be remembered as that first client that, took on that, that channel.
So then outside of the virtual space, like Chris and Billy, I would love to get your guys' take on, are there other major trends, growth drivers that you've also really been seeing take off this year?
I think we've hit on a few of them, but most certainly programmatic continues to thrive. And I hate to go into the all the channels, but we've certainly seen a double-digit rise in programmatic again this year, and it's been a good 4-year trend for us. I've seen a lot more, and I don't know if it started the year out this way or in the last several months, but a lot more or a lot less of a branding initiative and more of a local initiative, if you will, and message related. I love what Alejandro said about doing a good job creatively, and I think we are, as an industry, doing an excellent job at that. But I do see trend-wise a lot of local initiative as it relates to the messages that are getting out there versus just big branding.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we went through it in kind of the last little discussion of just AR, and that's clearly the big one now. But to Billy's point, programmatic, everyone's seeing double digits, if not triple digit growth in that space. I'd say like the one thing maybe could be increased with the rise of digital. Obviously, it's going to continue to increase forever. I feel like the use of dynamic is like not advancing at the same pace as digital is right now. Like, you're going to do digital, like do it dynamically, do it smart, do it some type of creatively. And I think, and maybe this is just the nature of our business, sometimes it's so quick, campaigns go up and there's no chance to really do that, and it just becomes a spot and dot, which is also fine. There's branding for it and things like that obviously, and it could have great creative as well. I think maybe that's just something that's a little bit underutilized right now, and maybe, hopefully it will increase. And it's been around forever. It's just, I don't know if the usage is up to par yet.
I think it's funny though, like now that when QR codes came out, when it first came out, like no one went near it. It was kind of like, QR codes, that's annoying. I don't even have a thing on my phone for it. Then COVID came along, and QR codes are back and better than ever, and a hell of a lot more use right now. So it's interesting how that went from nothing to something very quickly, and now it's just like a normal course of life right now. So it's great that and if people are starting to add that to their ads to create, again, another experience. You can do AR through it, you can shop through it, all those things, creating all those opportunities. So it helps, I think that's helping growth a little bit, although it's nothing really new, but.
Awesome. So I told you guys I wasn't going to ask you a question that I didn't prepare you for, and I lied. This is the last one, though. Alicia wanted to get your guys' perspective, and I think this would be great. But it's really just your personal advice for young talent starting out in the industry. Would love for each of you guys just to kind of go around, and if you just have any thoughts, personal advice, I think we could all benefit from that. So Mark, I'll start with you if you don't mind putting on the spot.
Advice to the young folks. What would I say to myself at that? I just think it's important for them gosh, I don't even have a thoughtful answer right now. Can you get back to me on that one? I really want to give this thoughtful consideration.
That's totally fair.
Thank you for that.
Other takers that want to speak up next?
I'll take that. I think for me, of course, the last 2.5 years have really changed the way that we do work. And I believe that it's had probably a disproportionate effect on, new employees coming into our industry who have, really, let's say, have been introduced to work in a virtual environment. We are going to go back. It's more than likely going to be hybrid in some shape or form. So my advice would be in this new world is to do whatever you can to be present, whether it's being present in the physical world, let's say when you're in the office or you're meeting someone, but also do whatever you can to be present in the virtual. Okay, when we're on Zoom in the virtual world, and if that just means giving yourself 5 minutes to always respond to emails, or when you're when you're on a Zoom, actively listening and having your camera on. My advice is to do whatever you can to be present. Okay, whether virtually or physically. That would probably be my best advice for new entrants into our industry.
I think you bring up a good point, because one of the things that I think makes me nervous nowadays is about with the hybrid nature of what we're doing, that, I think more junior people are losing out on really gaining experience, that happens when you're in a room together, when you can share ideas and collaborate right away in real time versus waiting for a Zoom to happen. And, how are you going to shadow people to understand the way business works? You know what I mean? So it's really important to be there, to be a part of that, to be a part of the decisions that's being made, as opposed to just sitting at home. It's not, how much work you get done, but how are you going to be a leader unless you watch people, grow with people, understand stuff, have experiences? You don't have that at home in front of your laptop. You have to be in the world. You have to be, to Alejandro's point, present.
Yeah, I think the relationship that you had, I'm sure when all this came up, you remember those first teams that you worked with, 5 hours, hours and hours in the office. You had a great team, probably all going out together on Thursday nights or anything like that. And I feel like that's the part that they're missing right now, which is a little bit of a bummer. But hopefully when we get back, that will change a bit. I think either when you're, in the office or when you're home, I think there's also, especially when you're a junior, you're doing very repetitive tasks, right? There's a lot of POP, there's contracting, things like that. So it's very easy to get complacent. And I think, the less that you can be complacent about things, the better. Continue to learn, just read on the industry is always a huge thing. And lean on that senior staff, ask for a mentor. If maybe you have a mentorship program, in your company, I know Rapport does, and it does really well, but lean on that senior staff for advice. Because I think, getting the juniors through this last couple of years, they've been vastly reliant on senior advice to be well, we should go back to the office in just at least a couple of days to get, that relationship building and things like that. But yeah, I always feel like the senior voice in the room sometimes is helpful for them.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would agree on the mentorship. That was definitely one of the notes that I would definitely recommend. The other thing is, whether it's sales or on the agency side, and I've had the fortune of being on both, stay committed. It's easy, it's easy to get in a rut. Like Chris said, it's easy to, if you're selling and it's not going your way, and, you can lose your focus and you can get frustrated and down, and that's why it's so important to have a mentor and somebody to look up to. They will keep you focused, they will keep you committed, and, stay with it, because it's easy to, go astray when things aren't going your way, or if you're losing your focus, or you're in that rut, or, you're bored. It is a commitment. It's a going back to your culture and your team, it is a team experience. And what I think we all try to do as an industry, no matter what side you're on, is create a drive and create an experience for the employees so they have a career. So it's not just come in, learn it, and get out. I know that we as an industry are building long-term solutions, and this is where it starts. And I think that it's very important to, as leaders, educate the younger folks or the newer folks coming in, educate, keep them on a path, and help them get to the next level.
Yeah, I think education, and Chris brought it up, and Billy, you just said it, education is key because we're always learning. I think that's one thing advice that we're always learning. There's always something new. This industry is constantly growing and changing and expanding, and you have to stay abreast of it. If you're not on top of it, then you'll be irrelevant. And in order to stay relevant, you have to keep educating. You have to be involved. You have to stay committed to what we're doing to grow with it and create change.
Yeah, and add on to what Alejandro said, you must stay present. Whether you're vocally doing it or showing up at every event or showing up at every meeting and not, looking at your phone or emailing while you're not supposed to be. I mean, take the time to learn if somebody's taking the time to teach you.
Awesome. Well, you guys, this is it. This has been incredible. So thank you so very much for joining today, taking the time. I know myself, I already feel empowered just listening to all of you guys. So I always appreciate your perspective and the thought leadership that you bring to our industry. So thank you very much. And with that, I will pass it over to Alicia for the closing remarks.
That was such great content. Thanks, Laura, and to all of our panelists for sharing your expertise, to our sponsors for supporting us today. We'll share a recording of this on our website and via email. Please stay connected with us at the Advertising Club. You can visit us at theadvertisingclub.org. And of course, we hope to see you on December 8th, live here in New York. Everyone, stay happy, stay healthy, and enjoy the rest of your summer. Thanks so much.